36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
Let's start with the obvious. Donald Trump thought this war would be easy. 4 days. Maybe 5. That's what he apparently expected when the United States launched its strikes against Iran. A quick show of force. A decapitation strike against Iran's leadership. A moment of dramatic television. Then a ceasefire. And Trump standing in front of cameras declaring victory. Mission accomplished. Except that's not what happened. Not even close. Because Iran didn't collapse. Iran didn't panic. Iran didn't come begging for peace. Instead, Iran rejected Trump's ceasefire offer outright. And now the situation is spiraling into something far more dangerous than the administration ever planned for. This is what happens when foreign policy is run like a reality show. You see, the assumption inside Trump's circle was simple. Eliminate the Ayatollah, shock the Iranian system, and force the regime into a quick surrender. But anyone who has spent 5 minutes studying the Middle East knows that's not how Iran works. Iran's leadership structure is layered. It's institutional. And the moment one leader disappears, another one steps in. Which is exactly what happened. Iran's Interim Leadership Council has already assumed control, and the message coming from Tehran is crystal clear. The war isn't over. In fact, from their perspective, it's just getting started. Now, the consequences of that miscalculation are beginning to show up across the region. Iran has launched wave after wave of retaliation against American military positions. Ballistic missiles, attack drones, coordinated strikes across the Middle East, U.S. bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates. All of them have been targeted. And now we're seeing the first grim confirmation of what this escalation actually means. American service members are already dead. 3 U.S. troops killed. 5 seriously wounded. And those numbers may rise. Let that sink in for a moment. Because for all the talk of quick victories and decisive strikes, the reality of war is flag-draped coffins coming home. Meanwhile, the administration is trying to project confidence. Trump is telling reporters that the United States is winning. Winning. That's the word he used. But if this is winning, it's a very strange version of it. Iranian missiles are hitting bases across the region. Drone strikes are targeting infrastructure. Even oil facilities in the Persian Gulf are under attack. And perhaps most dangerously of all, the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important shipping lanes on the planet, is now effectively frozen. Roughly a quarter of the world's oil supply moves through that narrow channel. And right now, tankers are anchored. Ships are stalled. Global energy markets are watching nervously. Because if that choke point closes even temporarily, the economic consequences could ripple across the entire world. This is the kind of scenario serious national security planners worry about. But serious planning doesn't seem to have been part of this operation. And the political fallout back in Washington is already exploding. Republicans are lining up to defend the president's decision. Some are arguing that eliminating Iran's leadership weakens terrorism. Others are insisting the United States had no choice but to act. But when reporters started asking a very basic question, what exactly is the plan now? Things got awkward. Because the answer, apparently, is hope. Hope that Iran's government collapses. Hope that the Iranian people rise up. Hope that somehow the situation resolves itself without dragging the United States into a much longer war. Hope is not a strategy. Hope is what you say when you don't actually have a strategy. And critics of the administration are pointing out something else that's equally important. Under the U.S. Constitution, the president doesn't get to launch a major war without consulting Congress. Yet, that's exactly what appears to have happened. No vote. No authorization for military force. Just a decision made inside the White House, which is why some lawmakers are now calling the operation illegal. They're arguing that if the United States is entering another Middle Eastern war, and make no mistake, that's exactly what this looks like, the American people deserve to hear the case for it. So far, they haven't. And that raises an uncomfortable question. Did the administration believe this would be over before anyone had time to ask those questions? Because that's what it looks like. A short war, a quick victory, a triumphant speech, and then on to the next news cycle. But wars have a way of refusing to cooperate with political timeline. They evolve, they escalate, and sometimes they spiral far beyond what anyone expected. Right now, we're already seeing signs of that escalation. Protests across Iran, crowds demanding revenge, demonstrations spreading beyond the country's borders, U.S. embassies and consulates across the region increasing security, intelligence agencies warning about potential retaliation. Even investigations here in the United States are now examining whether recent violence could be connected to the growing conflict. In other words, the ripple effects of this war may not stay confined to the Middle East. And that's the part of this story that should concern every American. Because history has shown us what happens when conflicts in that region expand. The wars last longer. The costs grow higher. And the consequences stretch far beyond the original battlefield. Now, the administration insists the situation is under control. Trump continues to claim that the operation has been successful. But the facts on the ground tell a much more complicated story. Iran isn't negotiating. Iran isn't backing down. Iran is fighting. And the longer this continues, the harder it becomes to predict where it ends. That's the reality of war. You don't get to script the ending. You don't get to decide the timeline. And you definitely don't get to treat it like another episode of political theater. Because while politicians argue and television networks debate the strategy, there are American troops in harm's way right now. Real people. Real consequences. And if this conflict continues to escalate, the question that's going to hang over Washington is painfully simple. Was this war necessary? Or was it a catastrophic miscalculation? That answer may take months, or even years, to fully understand. But one thing is already clear. The idea that this would be a quick, easy victory? That fantasy is already gone. And the world is now dealing with the consequences.